Right, Premier League predictions, let's go. Okay, so we'll go bottom up. Let's start with my bottom three. Now, I've went with Southampton bottom and Ipswich just above them, and the reason that I've done that is because I feel like a lot of teams that come up who are like your Ipswiches, Luton the year before, we've seen Forest do it in recent years, we've seen Leeds do it, we've seen even Brentford do it. A lot of teams that come up for the first time in a long time, they have that feel-good factor about them, which a lot of the time, for at least the first season, can definitely help them survive. Obviously, I have Ipswich to get relegated. I don't think that'll be enough this year. I think they'll really struggle away from home. I don't think their squad's that great. However, I've got Southampton to finish below them because I actually think the teams that struggle the most are the ones that don't have a great squad and were here not that long ago. The sort of feel-good factor isn't here. If Southampton go out and start losing games, it's just going to feel very doom and gloom. They spent years in the top flight and they've spent 1 year out of it. It's not some new experience for their fans. I think Russell Martin might be a bit too high, a bit too quickly. I do rate him as a manager and I want him to do well, but I just don't think Southampton have the squad to really compete at all this year. And the last team I have going down is Forest. Part of me's put Forest here sort of because I just don't think that 2 seasons in a row will see all new promoted clubs get relegated. I also don't think Forest have a great squad. I think they're starting to be caught out a wee bit, and I think in recent years they've kind of been lucky to survive. Yeah, I could see things definitely going wrong for Forest. Okay, now 17th to 15th, the teams that will avoid relegation but finish a little bit below what you consider mid-table. I don't think Leicester will be great this year. I think they'll have enough to survive. However, this is all, determined on we don't know whether or not they're getting a points deduction. If they do get a massive points deduction, then yeah, I think they could get relegated as well. Maybe Forest will survive, but I'm kind of assuming that they won't get anything that bad. I don't think they've got a great squad. However, I think if anyone's got a chance of staying up, it's probably them. Brentford's another one like Forest. I think people are starting to catch them out a little bit. I think Tony was their biggest asset and he's just not got the drive to be there anymore. If he's still there come the end of the summer transfer window, I think he'll definitely leave in January. I don't think Brentford's got enough to replace him. I just don't see Brentford doing that well. And the 15th I've got Wolves. Look, they went through a few years of some pretty hard financial times and now they've sold a lot of their best players. I still think they've got a decent wee squad. I think Gary O'Neill's nowhere near as bad as people make him out to be. They won't be an amazing side this year. They won't go very far up the table, but they'll comfortably survive relegation. They're not going to be in any trouble of that. 14th to 11th now, and I've got Brighton in 14th. Look, I'm sort of one of those people that's starting to just not rate Brighton. They were a really hipster club and they were good to watch, but it has to fail eventually. They can't keep bringing in people really left field, really cheap, and having them just morph into amazing players and managers overnight. I think this could be the year where Brighton start to get caught out a bit. They're absolutely not going to get anywhere near relegation, but they're equally not going to get anywhere near the European spots. I see them probably struggling at points this season, and I actually think that Fabian Hurtzler will be sacked at some point and replaced with someone else. So I don't see Brighton having an amazing season, but they'll be nowhere near relegation. 13th place, I've got Bournemouth. Losing Solanke is a big thing. However, I think they'll replace him. Iriola's got a decent side going. They play good football. I don't think Bournemouth will struggle at all, but they won't be challenging anyone. Now, Everton and Fulham for me seem like the best of the rest, and the reason I'm going with that is purely because of their managers. I think all Fulham are lacking is a decent striker, and then they would actually be a genuinely good side. Obviously, losing Palhinha's a bit of a big loss. However, they could potentially replace him. There's still a lot of time for the window left to be open. And Everton as well with Sean Dyche. Look, he is an underrated manager. He's a safe pair of hands, and I think he could do well with them this year. 10th place to 8th place now, and I've gone for West Ham in 10th. I think they've got a good squad, and I think Lopetegui is a good appointment. However, they're not going to... I think he's going to take a few years to build them up to anything interesting. It will be interesting though to see who else they sign. They've been active in the transfer market. Fulkrug could be an absolutely amazing buy. Obviously stealing Wolves captain Max Kilman. I do think that West Ham will be a good side this year. In 9th place, I've gone for one of the best teams towards the end of last season. I've gone for Crystal Palace. I loved watching Crystal Palace towards the end of last season. Losing Elise is a big loss. However, I think they really have the feel-good factor about them. There's a lot of belief around the team this year. I think Palace could be an underrated side this year. I do think they could do quite well. And in 8th place, I've gone for Aston Villa. Look, Villa were great last year. I think losing Douglas Luiz is an absolutely enormous loss. people are going to be really caught on to Ollie Watkins this year as well. He's going to be a big threat to everyone, and they're going to know that. Also playing Champions League and losing Diaby, I just don't see Villa doing as well this year. I still think they'll be a decent side, but I don't think they'll have enough for Europe. In 7th place, I've gone for Spurs. I think Spurs look really good on paper. However, I think their squad isn't deep enough. They've still not been able to lose this sort of Spursy mindset. And I do think this could be a year where Postecoglou's gung-ho tactics start to be sort of seen as a bit more of a negative than just an underlying positive. But yeah, I still think there's no way that Spurs don't get at least Conference League. Going into the Europa League spots now, and I've gone for Chelsea and Manchester United. I quite like the business that Man United have done. They've really shored up their defence. And I do actually rate Ten Hag as a manager. I think he is pretty good. I think if he can get, Højlund on form and even Rashford into a bit of form, coupled with the likes of Fernandes and Diallo and Garnacho, he's got some decent attacking talent as well. So yeah, I think Manchester United will finish around about 6. It won't be anything special. They've still got their problems. They've had some injuries as well, but I think there'll be an improvement on last year. And now for a bold claim, I've gone for Chelsea in 5th. I think Chelsea will have a lot of big first-team players coming back from injury this year, and you can't assume that they'll just all get injured again. Yes, people like Reece James will probably get injured again. However, having Nkunku back, they're probably going to sign Victor Osimhen. Pedro Neto has just come in, and then you've got people like Caicedo has now got a year's experience under his belt. Fernandes is going to be able to play actually fit and not be playing with injuries. Chelsea's big worry for me is their defence, but otherwise they look pretty good, and another stellar season from Cole Palmer incoming. So yeah, I think Chelsea will be much better this year, but I don't think either Chelsea, United or Spurs will be anywhere near the top 4. Okay, now in 4th place I've got Newcastle. I feel like Newcastle's biggest problem of last year was their horrendous injury record. That whilst playing in Europe this year, they'll have a lot of people back from injury. They're not playing in Europe. They've kept the bulk of their squad together. Isaac's still there, Bruno's still there, Joelinton's still there, Gordon's still there. A lot of people coming back from injury. I think Newcastle will be a pretty good side this year. So yeah, especially if they're getting Tonali back, I'm going to tip Newcastle. I think they'll get in the Champions League spots again. Now in 3rd place I've gone for Liverpool. I'm a bit concerned by the fact that they haven't signed anyone yet. I kind of did expect them to have signed a few people by now when I was making this list. However, I think Slot will be well received. I think Anfield will still be a very difficult place to go. They still have a lot of good players. Don't get me wrong, if they keep up this mentality of not really backing the manager, then they'll fall apart in the next few years. But I think Slot will have enough to still do pretty well this year. And now for the top 2, and I've actually gone with Arsenal to win the league this year. I think City are starting to slow down. I think the charges surrounding them, it's getting closer and closer to a decision being made. That's going to weigh heavily on the squad. Guardiola's considering leaving. A lot of the spine, a lot of the legendary players of the recent years are starting to age a wee bit. They're starting to slow down a wee bit. I just don't think City are the perfect beast that they once were. I think if Arsenal can replicate what they've done in the last 2 years, I think this is the year where City just won't have enough to stop them. I still expect them to go far in Europe, but they'll still go in for a title race towards the end of the year. Haaland will probably still be the top scorer in the league, but I just think this is the year where Arsenal could do it. And that is my predictions for the 2024-25 Premier League season. I'm sure a lot of you will disagree with a lot that I've said. I'm sure a lot of you will agree with a lot of what I've said. Let me know in the comments down below. We can review how well this ages towards the end of the season. However, once again, thanks to everyone who's made it this far into the video, and I'll see everyone next time.